Um, so today we are talking about host and guest, and we kind of live in a society where this is becoming something where people in the old days, when you had visitors, usually they never used to go to a hotel or such. They would come to people's houses. And so they didn't go to a restaurant to eat food. You had to prepare food at home. Now, this has changed a lot. And so a lot of times when families visit, they actually stay at the hotel and they may visit you for a couple of hours and so on. But the adab of host and guest is really important because Islam is a deen on muamala, that the deen is about relationships and it's about how we relate with people. And so Islam is all about bringing people together and socializing. And so this is an important part of understanding this dynamic because inevitably you may be the guest at one time or you may be the host at another. And so it's important to learn some basic ideas about this because it does affect the relationship between people when it's not done right. So we're going to discuss first about the host. The job of the host really is to give your guest the best possible experience that you can when they come to visit you. And we're talking about when they come to visit you in your home or home setting, and it can be expanded to hosting an organization and all of that. But we're really primarily discussing today the home. When you're hosting someone in the home, you have to do it in such a way that the guests do not feel that they are imposing on you, that you have to let them know it's an honor to have them as a guest, that there's no inconvenience involved. And you want to give them the best experience and make them feel welcomed. Were we able to get that video, Riyadh?
Yeah, I got the video ready.
Okay, so yeah, I want to play a small clip to show you something about the Arab culture.
Guys, here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna go to a random stranger's house and knock on their door. Thank you. Enter their home and sit. And they cannot kick me out for 3 days.
Welcome to our home. Can I get you some water or coffee?
For 3 days, they have to feed me, let me play with their cat, give me water and shelter. And only after 72 hours, they can ask me why I am here.
Why are you here?
And how can we help you?
What you just saw may look exaggerated, but it's a real thing. In the Bedouin culture, you have to treat guests for 3 days in your home before you can ask them why they came to visit.
Why are you here?
And this rare generosity is why you should travel to Arab countries. For example, take the Emirates. In this country, there are a lot of Arabs who look like this. The movies make them look unfriendly, but in real life, they are generous. At restaurants, you have no chance of paying for the bill. The locals will always fight to pay on your behalf. In other places, people fight because they don't want to pay. And here, they fight because they want to pay. Why? Just let it be. Why are you fighting about it? It's considered shameful not to offer guests food. That's why you'll see these meals and these meals regularly offered to guests.
There's a saying in many parts of the world that the customer is always right. But in this part of the world, we say that the guest is always first.
They will also dress you up like one of them and share with you their farm produce. This is a lot of food, man. Thank you. I'm not saying this as a tourist. I know this because I'm Arab too, and for all my life I did not know why my people fight to pay.
The tradition of welcoming someone for 3 days has been passed down from Bedouin culture. No matter who you are, no matter where you're from, when we see you, you are welcome and you are safe.
The truth is, my people have a lot of stereotypes and many of them are true. We do have a problem with women treatment. We do have a problem with tolerance. We do have a problem with endless wars. But we do not have a problem with generosity, because no one else would host a guest in their own home for 3 days without question. There are many more stereotypes about us that need to be broken. This is why you need to come visit. Come visit, come visit. You will be safe, full, and satisfied.
I wanted to show that video because it really emphasizes the kind of culture that the Prophet ﷺ, when he came, this was the culture of the Arabs. They were very, very generous people, very hospitable, and it continues to this day as well. And so Islam took from that this generous quality that the Arabs had, and it became part of our religion as well. The Prophet ﷺ would always, whenever people come to him, delegations, he would make sure that they are, before they even begin to say their business, he would make sure that they're freshen up, they're given some food, and they're given some time to rest before he even talk to them of why they came. And so we have within our faith this tradition of being very generous and very kind to people when we're hosting them. Now, the Prophet himself, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, one last thing on the Arab culture, if you go to some Arabs, you will see sometimes they would have an expression called ahlan wa sahlan, which means it's a phrase that you may encounter when you enter a home of an Arab. It's ahlan wa sahlan, which really is a very difficult to translate. Ahlan means you are family, like it comes from the word family, which means that you should know that you are with family. And sahlan has many meanings. One of it is ease. Another one is to be in a safe place. And so it's like saying you're with family and you're in a safe place that is going to be easy for you. So this small expression, sometimes it gets translated as welcome, but the real meaning is, you're at family, you're in a safe place with ease. And so they would make this expression, ahlan wa sahlan. And so one of the Islamic etiquette that the Prophet ﷺ mentioned, Man kana yu'minu billahi wal yawmil akhir falyukrim dayfa, that let him who believes in Allah on the last day honor his guest. And the word yukrim, karuma, which means to be generous, to be noble, to be distinguished. So he said, let him who believe in Allah on the last day be generous and noble and generous and kind to their guest. And the Prophet ﷺ also tells us, O people, spread Islam, give food, and pray when the people are sleeping. You will enter paradise in peace and safety. And so honoring the guest is really an incredible etiquette that we have got to understand. So whenever you get the opportunity to be a host, never see this as an inconvenience. Actually see this as an opportunity and an honor. That's why the Prophet tells us that there are 4 things which, if you want to know if someone has acquired happiness in this world, he said there are 4 things. If you get them, then you could be considered as a very happy person. One of those is a spacious home, a good spouse, a reliable transportation, and a good neighbor. He said if you have these 4, then you've accomplished a very great deal of happiness in this world. So one of the things that we need to do is before our guests arrive, we should clean our home. This is really important because what happens is that we live in a home and we're accustomed to a certain level of messiness in our home. We things are there, we get accustomed to it. And sometimes we not notice it, and we think it's okay. But we've got to, whenever we hear guests is going to come, we have to relook at our space, relook at our living rooms, and say, hey, this might be okay for us, but we've got to make it better for our guests. And then you need to make a great deal of effort to try to clean up your home. Make sure that you take, vacuum. Make sure the bathrooms are properly set up. Make sure that you tidy up. So this is part of the adab of preparing for the guest. That you must don't just have your home. They come, whoever it is. I don't really have time to do it. You should see this as a moment where use it as an opportunity to clean the home. You know that when you're having guests, and when they arrive, before they even arrive, you have to start to prepare the house for them. You have to understand, how many of them coming and all of that stuff. And if they're going to spend the night over, then you have to define where's the sleeping area that they're going to be sleeping. Uh, Make sure that you put fresh sheets in the bed out. You have an extra blanket because they may not get accustomed to your temperature or your AC. And so an extra blanket, if they feel cold in the night, they can have that available. Put out a prayer rug for them in case they want to pray. You should also remove personal items from the uh, the room where they're going to sleep, or the space where they're going to sleep. You don't want to have like your underwear and all this other embarrassing stuff hanging around in the place. You want to be able to remove those things before the guests come. Provide a space in the closet. Give some extra hangers so that they can hang up their clothes. Put some clean towels. Make sure there's a container in the bathroom where they can wash themselves. You want to be able to put aside that, because that's really part of how we're preparing for them. It's really taking the time to do some of this stuff is really important. And then what you want to have is like a small basket with some toiletries. This can include, like, for example, a toothpaste, some mouthwash, some shampoo, conditioner, and you may want to add in there a couple of like Advil or Tylenol and some Tums in case they get upset stomach from your food. So, you have these available there. So you're making it convenient for them, right? You should also stock up on snacks, and try to find snacks that are healthy and not, full of sugar. And then the Prophet ﷺ mentioned the food of two persons suffices for three, and the food for three suffices for four. And so one of the important things of this hadith is that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala puts barakah in the food, so you don't have to worry about, whether it's going to be enough. But usually when guests come, you have some snacks that they can snack at night or when it's easy for them, and make it in such a way that they have easy access to the snacks. You will let them know, here's, a bunch of snacks that, you could take. Before they arrive also, you have to have clarity and communication. Quite often, a lot of times, this issue gets messed up because there's no clarity. When are they coming? What time they go and do that? On all kinds of confusion. Or do they expect us to pick them up from the airport? So often we see guests coming and there's no clarity. The guests don't take the time to provide the information. The host is not asking, and we end up with a lot of confusion. So you have to be able, if you hear guests are coming, part of your job as a host is, because you want to make that experience pleasant, and you want, if the guests fall short and not, because sometimes guests, they're not so trained. And so they may fall short in not providing you all that you need to know. You have to be proactive as a guest because you're trying to get the experience straight. So you've got to be proactive in finding out what you need to know to make their stay pleasant. And so one of that is to have clear information about when are they arriving, when are they leaving, how long are they going to stay by you, what time they're going to be arriving, so that what time are they going to be leaving. So you have to have clarity about that because you have to plan your schedules, bearing in mind those of the guest. Then you have to make sure that they have clear directions to your home, so that they can know and they don't get lost. You have to find out if they need transportation to get to your house? Do I have to pick you up at the airport? How many you come in? Do I have to come with a SUV or a car? How many suitcases you're going to be bringing? Find out about, have you ate already? Are you going to be coming for dinner, or you would have already ate dinner before you come to my house? So I have to know if I'm preparing a full-fledged meal for you or not. And it's not embarrassing to ask about those things. So because they come like 1 o'clock or something, 12:30, and you're sure whether they had lunch or not. So you have to find out, you know, are you eating before you come? So we prepare dinner, or we have to prepare lunch as well. So those are the things that you really want to make sure. You cannot be embarrassed about it. How many of you are coming? This is another important thing. So you have to, because you're preparing for them. How many of you will be staying over? For how long? All the information you can to find out about it would make it easier for you to plan as the host. Now, they have begun to arrive. So those are the things before they arrive. As they arrive, one of the things we do is we greet, of course, Muslims. Two Muslims will not meet and shake hands without having their sins forgiven before they depart. And so part of the etiquette of being a host is to greet them with a warm smile, to make sure you're present there, because, don't just let them just ring the bell and walk in there. You don't want them to get the impression that they are an imposition to you or they are an inconvenience. So you, as the host, have to go out of your way to make them feel comfortable. You have got to be the one smiling. You have got to be the one with a warm welcome. Assalamu alaikum, welcome. Express happiness and joy that they are there with you. And so that they begin to feel comfortable in your presence. This is really very important. I tell you, I have so many stories, because when we were in our country, I used to do a lot of Islamic work, and we would travel different places, both in Guyana and both in Trinidad, and our culture also, Guyanese and Trinidadian and Caribbean people, we are very, very hospitable as well. It is something that is part of the culture there. And I would conduct classes and circles in all kinds of places. And then I would have to spend the night in people's homes. And it was amazing to see how generous those people were. I remember staying in one home, and the mom had to go and borrow flour to make roti for us in the morning, because she was so poor that she did not have enough flour to make roti for us to have breakfast in the morning. So she went to her neighbor and borrowed stuff, but they never said no. They never said no. They were very, very generous. And they always made us feel so welcome. I went to Trinidad, and in Trinidad, the brothers that were there, subhanAllah, there was one very, very, the brothers in Trinidad may know Brother Zabar Baksh. We used to stay in one of the homes we used to stay at. And the brother would actually, take us to the grocery store, and he would say, buy anything you need, and then he would allow us to stay in his home, and he would say, here's the fridge, you don't have to go to work, just eat and take whatever you want. They were always very, very generous. And so this is something that our Islamic culture is. So as they arrive, you want to make sure you have that warm smile and that warm greeting. Then when they come, don't wait too long to provide food or to offer food for them. Make sure they get freshened up, and you always have to make sure you have food available and ready. I put this ayah because this is the one that usually people quote about Ibrahim alayhi salam, how he was being generous. These were angels that actually visited him, and of course, he didn't know them, and he offered roasted calf and all of that, and it's a long story. Now, if you are a person who you don't know to cook, you're a terrible cook, but you can eat your own food. Usually most terrible cooks, they can eat their own food, but they don't offer it to other people. So if you find that you can't cook, then you should buy food. Go out and buy food if you can, you have to be able to make sure that your guests have a good experience. Really important is some guests, you have to know them to some extent. Some are very picky. They want zabiha, they don't want just halal, they want zabiha. So you have to make sure if you don't know which one it is that your guests prefer, then you have to go with Zabiha. But if you know, you could pick one of those. But this is something that people are very, very serious about, and it will be like a betrayal if you give them halal that is not Zabiha, and they are very gung ho on that. They would feel that you have betrayed them. So, because the people who insist on Zabiha, they are, very strict and very stringent in terms of that policy of theirs. So be very careful about that as well. And then you also have to make sure that you offer them tea, something to drink, as early as they arrive, so that they begin to feel, comfortable. Um, Always keep sugar separate because you don't know who wants sugar and who don't want. Um, there's a hadith here of the Prophet ﷺ in which Abu Huraira came to visit the Prophet ﷺ, and the Prophet offered him to drink milk, and he keep insisting on him to drink more and more and more and more. Generally, as scholars said, at least 3 times. Don't keep forcing your guests to take more food, take more food, take more food. We should have some respect. But encourage them to eat as much as you can, but don't just, keep putting stuff on their plate. Some of the old women, they drop some more stuff on your plate and they drop some more stuff on your plate, and you're unable to eat all of it out, so you don't want to have that situation, right? Then, as soon as they finish eating, you want to get them situated. You've already prepared their room, which we mentioned. So you want to show them to their room, take their luggage there, make sure that they have the Wi-Fi written down and give it to them. Don't wait for them to ask. Here is Wi-Fi. Show them where the switches and the lights are, the bathroom, the direction of the Qibla, so that they are, they have clear in their minds all the stuff that they need to do. And to give them a moment to also have some privacy there as they get, freshened up and rest and so on. I mentioned from the very beginning that one of the things you want to do throughout their visit is to really make them feel welcomed. You should not behave in such a manner that they begin to feel that they're imposing on your time or they're a nuisance. You want to let them know that it's a great pleasure to have them. You're so excited to be and to socialize with them. If you can find out some of their favorite foods, that you may be able to offer some of this to them whilst they're there. And then you have to work with them to see what plans they have. Sometimes guests, they're coming there, but they're really not, they just want to sleep over, but they have a full day packed that doesn't involve you. So you have to have clarity again in terms of what specific plans they have. Are they expecting you to plan some stuff for them? Or do they have their stuff planned out? And these are dialogue that you have to enhance the stay. So you have to see what are they interested in seeing. You may offer some suggestions as well, and says, well, in Florida, there's so much to see. Here's a list of some of the things which, we probably could go to if you guys want, and allow them to be able to coordinate with you and to have that plan of what they're planning to do, so that their stay can be very pleasant and very enjoyable. Now, as they leave, you want to again make sure that they're leaving it smooth, that it doesn't have any hiccup. And the worst thing you want is they had a wonderful time by you, but the leaving was a disaster. So you want to make sure transportation again. Do you need us to drop you to the airport? Are you, are we calling an Uber? Or, you want to walk them to their car. This is a very important thing. You don't want to they leave through the front door and you're in your house. Part of the adab is to walk with your guest to the last moment that they can see you as visible, that you're there waving them off, talking to them, make sure they're in their car, help them with their luggage to get inside the car. If any leftover snacks you have, give it to them so that they can take it on their trip. And then you want to wait at the door until they drive off, so that they see you while you wave driving off. There's a very big difference with that standing at the door and waving off and not doing it. I have been guest and host different times. And there's a different feeling when you leave and the hosts don't come out and stay there and wave at you compared to when they do. It's like some kind of like thing. It looks weird. Feels like that they're just glad to get rid of you. So it's important that you stay there and you wave them off, so that they feel, it has a certain good feeling. When you just walk in back and then they just gone by themselves, it doesn't feel the same. So it's a small thing, but it really has an impact. And then, you want to follow up when they have left, that, did you guys arrive okay? Thank you very much for visiting us. We enjoyed your visit. Let us know when you're visiting us again. And so this creates that beautiful experiences and puts a closing, thing on it. So this is some of the simple things that the host should be able to do. And as I said, you have to have the attitude that if Allah has allowed guests to come in your home, you have to see them as a blessing that Allah has given you to be able to be generous to your guest. Now, if you are a guest and you are coming as a guest, then your job is to be to provide the least inconvenience to your host as possible. You want to be able to, when you come to someone's as a guest, that I want to trouble the host as least as possible. I don't want to be a burden. I don't want to be an inconvenience. I don't want them to feel that, I'm a problem. And so before you as a guest arrive, you should try to make sure that you are telling your host exactly when you're going to come. You don't wait for the host to ask. You're the guest coming. At the time when you're informing the host that you're planning to come visit, you should have already laid out, we're coming to visit at this time, at this day, we're leaving at that time, that day. You want to provide that information up front. Also, whether you need transportation or not. So as the guest, you want to be able to do that. Now, if you're a guest and you have certain food allergies, you have certain medical issues, you have to make sure that you convey this to the host, because the host is taking care of you. And if you're not telling them what kind of medical problems you have that will impact you, if they serve you food, what kind of food issues you have, which food you don't like, and you have allergies towards. So part of the responsibility of the guest is to let the host know this. Now, if you're a guest and you're coming, the adab is that you should bring a gift. The guest should bring a gift. Simple things like a box of chocolates or cookies or something, but some small token gift to show your appreciation to the host and as a way of saying thanks for, being a host for us. So you should not come with nothing. You should have at least some gift. And you should preferably bring your own toiletries. I know you mentioned that the host will try to provide some basic toiletries, but the reality is, you as the guest, you know what kind of shampoo you use, you know what kind of toothpaste you use, you know what. So you should preferably walk with your own toiletries. I know people who walk with their own pepper sauce. They don't go anywhere unless they walk with their own pepper sauce, their own pepper, because it's that important to them. I have so many friends who, they have to have that pepper sauce traveling with them. So make sure you walk with your toiletries and whatever, things you need in there. When you arrive at the person's home, you should give salams. As I mentioned before, the host will come out and may not come out and treat you warmly, but you from your end as the guest should make sure that you are greeting your host with salams and smile. You should, when you come, if you press the doorbell and you don't hear an answer, you don't start going around the house looking in at each window to see if anybody is home. All right, this is not what we do. You have to press the bell and wait. You have to understand that part of that may be person may be praying Salah at that moment. So you have to give a moment Don't keep pressing the bell 15 times in a hurry. Press the bell once, wait for the duration of a 4 rak'ah salah, because they will be praying that. And if you see them come, then you press the bell again. And also, you should make sure when you go to someone's house, you're entering through the main door. You're not going through some side entrance. This is really important because you may enter upon a person's home and they may not expect you. They may be improperly dressed. They may, so you always go to the main door of the residence and you knock or you press the buzzer and then you wait. Right? So when the host comes out, then you give salam. And as we mentioned again, that when you arrive in a gathering, you should offer salam to those who are already there, and you should also do so when you intend to leave. And so that's the first thing when you arrive as a guest. Secondly, you have to make sure that don't make a mess. They have provided you certain beds and certain room or certain space. Don't start dumping out all your suitcase on the bed and having the place in such a mess. You've got to understand this is not your home, right? And so you've got to basically adopt a minimalist attitude, only trying to take out from your suitcase what you're going to use for that particular stay. Make sure you put things in a good place. Don't start, messing up the whole room. You have to keep it tidy. And when you get up in the morning, make sure you make up the bed and you have the room looking proper. Now, if you see stuff in the room, in the bathroom, in the kitchen, everywhere, you must always ask permission before you start using stuff. All right, this is really important. You don't just go start picking up stuff and using and assuming that it's okay. It's not. So you go to the bathroom. If the host have not told you what toothpaste to use and you saw another one, you don't just go using it. You have to go ask. I saw toothpaste over there. Can I use it? I saw so. So you've got to ask permission to use anything you see. That's really an important thing. And then we don't snoop. You don't start opening people's cabinet, medicine cabinet, start fiddling in their drawer and looking to see stuff. This is not what not what we are supposed to be doing. All right. So the host is allowing you in their home, in their privacy, and their special places. You want to be as less intrusive as possible. Now, if you came, but you're just spending the night, as I mentioned before, and you're not planning to stay long, you have to communicate that with your host. That, we're just going to spend the night, we're going to spend a couple hours, whatever it is, and let them know. And if you're a guest spending a long time at your host house, you want to be able to find ways to give them some free time. So don't be in their face all the time. Right? So that, so you want to give them some space. This is really a very important part. You don't want to take up your hosts every minute that they're there, as a guest, you're there. You want to be able to find, what, we're going to be going for a walk for about an hour so that your hosts have some time to be by themselves, or we're going to be reading a book in our room or something like that. You don't want to have to sit conversation hour after hour and occupy all of the host's time. Now, when it comes to the Salah, there's a very important and a very critical etiquette that no matter if you're a hafiz, you're an imam, you are whatever it is, you are so knowledgeable in your religion, but when it comes to the prayer, the sahibul bayt, the head of the home, is the one that is responsible for the salah in the home. So no guest should lead the host in salah whilst he is in the home of the host. It is the host's responsibility if they want to offer it to you, but you have to wait and allow the host to take the lead. Even though you're an imam or you're a hafiz, it doesn't matter. Right? You are in someone's home as their guest. They get to pick if you should lead, and then they can ask you. And if they ask you, then you go forward. If not, you immediately line up behind them and let them lead the salah. One of the other things that is important is you do not criticize the city of your host or the state of your host. It is a terrible, terrible feeling that, here is it, I'm keeping this brother, this sister, and all they're doing is bashing Florida. They're bashing Davie, they're bashing Miramar. It creates a kind of animosity between the host and the guest. That this guest coming to our home, which is in Miramar, which is in Davie, which is in Fort Lauderdale, and then criticizing the very city in which they are sitting in a house in that city. It tends to rub the host the wrong way, and it creates some friction and animosity. So if you're a guest, you want to do the opposite. You want to find good things to talk about the city, about that place that they live. Don't try to find things to criticize them about. Right? And you also want to be able to, whatever your host offers you, whether it's food, whether they offer you to go and see a museum, or they offer you to go and show you some entertainment or something, always show appreciation. You may not like the activity they're asking you to go to, but as a respect for the host, you may participate in it and show appreciation for it. The food they may offer you may not be the ones that you love the best, but you want to show appreciation of the fact that they do that, instead of becoming a guest who's constantly criticizing, constantly, making excuses and so on. And so you have to be very careful when you're a guest that you are also doing things which will make it easy for your host to host you. You don't want to be a difficult guest. They have some guests, they come at your houses and then they're telling you what, they begin to dictate. I need this kind of cereal. I need the AC at this amount of degrees. We're going to be having this. And they begin to lay out like if they're at a hotel. Do not be such guest. You have to work with the host. Let the host take the lead to offer stuff. And you just very minimally explain what is it that you require. Now, once your stay is over, as you leave, first of all, you don't want to overstay. As the video showed, the adab and the etiquette is we should stay minimum of 3 days. After that, then you're kind of infringing on the host. So you should try to make sure you don't overstay too long. There are times when the circumstances that you have creates that situation where you have to stay longer, and your host would understand that from the very beginning. And you want to leave a smaller footprint as possible. You don't want to be the kind of guest that when you leave, the host now have to clean up a whole bunch of mess that you have left in the room, in the place, all over, and to refix back their home after you let like a hurricane pass through. You want to, before you leave, really begin to tidy up, begin to clean up, begin to put the place back exactly as you met it, to make sure you're bringing back the room in the way that you met it when you came in, so that when you leave, the host will not have a bunch of work to do after you have left. So this is another very important part, because what happens when you do that, the chances of you coming back in that house is very minimal. The host will not feel comfortable inviting you again. You want to be able to be a kind of a guest that it's a joy and a pleasure to have you, and that you create an atmosphere and dynamic that the hosts themselves feel wonderful and they want to have you come again and again because of the kind of person and the kind of guest you are. You don't want to be the other kind of guest where never again am I going to have these people in my house. That's not what you want to be able to have. And then as you leave, you want to express thanks. You should thank them 3 times. When you first arrive, you have to thank them for wanting to host you. When you're heading out the door the last day, You want to thank them again for hosting you. And then when you arrive back at your house, you want to immediately call them or text them and let them know what a wonderful time you had and that you have arrived back safely. So you have 3 times you're thanking them. When you arrive, thank you for accommodating us. When you leave, thank you for having accommodated us. And thirdly, we have arrived back home. We want to really tell you how wonderful our visit was to you. And we really appreciate, all that you did as a host for us. And then you want to make dua for your host. Allahumma barik lahum fima razaqtahum waghfir lahum warhamhum. O Allah, bless for them that which you have provided them, forgive them, and have mercy upon them. You want to make dua for your host. And so these are some of the basic adab and etiquette that we are asked by our religion to establish. And depending upon what situation you are in, one of the things that it's important to note is that no matter how poor you are or how rich you are, it's important to understand the dynamic that you should have, when you have guests, do the best you can in your circumstance. I mentioned before, the generosity of the brothers and sisters in the Caribbean and how they used to take care of us. I know one case, there was a doctor from England. He and his wife went to Palestine and they stayed with a Palestinian family. And they accepted Islam as a result of that, because the Palestinians family put them in their home, give them a room in the tent, and they slept the night there, only to realize after that the whole family of the Palestinians were sleeping in the desert outside. That was their only room in their house, and they give it to them whilst they slept outside in the open air, because they are taught to be generous to your guest. And that single act of kindness, both the doctor and his wife accepted Islam. So we have this ethic and this adab. We live in a world that people are so they don't want company, they don't want neighbors, they don't want people to bother them. All of this is not really what our religion teaches us. We have to be sociable, we have to be engaging, and we have to, if Allah blesses you with, a spacious house and with some means of sustenance, and people want to stay over, your family, friends, and so on, we should at least try to treat them in the nicest possible way that we can. One of the people who was really, really make sure that the wayfarer, because we are encouraged by Allah to travel. And so the wayfarer has a great deal of rights upon us. One of the things the wayfarer gets is we can give zakat to them. Because even though they may in their own country be a person giving zakat to others, but by being a wayfarer, they are also entitled to receive zakat. And that we have to make sure that we take care of them as they're traveling through. So let us hope that we can, get back to this basic adab and etiquette of being nice to each other. And when we are host and guest, understand that dynamic. One of the things I do when I do premarital counseling workshop, because a young couple, sometimes they get trip up, they have their first guest. They just got married, and so they get guests, and then they are confused because they're not sure, can the girl serve the male guest? Who is supposed to do what? And so I always advise them, make sure you are clear among the two of you of how your guest is going to operate and what you're going to do when you have them. Don't wait until that moment arrives and then you're not quite sure what we're supposed to be doing here. So be very clear about those things. So we teach some of those things there as well. All right, so